Hi guys, today I will get into three separate topics which are connected to each other. Firstly, why a majority of Bengal displays the so-called secular attitude and refuses to acknowledge any threat towards Hindus and Hinduism. Is it because we are more progressive and educated than everyone else? Are we more intelligent? Are we better than the rest of India? And we will also discuss how there is a sweet little Karnataka connection in this conversation. And in the end, I'll get into the actions of a Hindu king from Bengal, which were very dark, strange and shameful. Firstly, why are Bengali Hindus always consciously and with consent happy to be sitting ducks? I would say the main reason is that Bengal largely has been under non-Hindu rule right from 1203 CE to 1948 CE. And remember what happens when oppressive foreign rulers invade your land and rule with an iron fist. As author John Gwynne writes in his fantasy fiction novel Valor, quote, "First would come despair, then acceptance, then servitude," end quote. And it is this servitude phase that we are witnessing in Bengal today, especially since the passing of people like Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, his younger brother Barindra Ghosh, Bipin Chandra Pal, etc. Regardless of some small local Hindu kingdoms and some zamindars, Bengal largely has been under Islamic rule right from Bakhtiyar Khilji's reign, which started in 1203 CE, the guy who destroyed the Nalanda University, by the way. And who knows how many of our historic documents and texts were burnt down in the library of that university. And that Islamic rule ended only when Robert Clive became the governor of Bengal at the behest of the British East India Company in 1757. So that's approximately 554 years of Muslim rule. And then from 1757 to 1937, white Christian Europeans rule Bengal until, in 1937, again, a Muslim man becomes the Prime Minister of Bengal, Mr. A.K. Fazlul Haq, also known as Shere Bangla. Well, guess what? Fazlul Haq was one of the people who presented the Lahore Resolution that aimed the creation of Pakistan. Here's an interesting quote from him regarding his role in the politics of Bengal. Quote, "I am the living history of Bengal and East Pakistan of the last 60 years. I am the last survivor of that band of unselfish and courageous Muslims who fought fearlessly against terrific odds." End quote. And guess who was his political secretary from 1918 to 1919? Future Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. And here's a fun piece of information just to give you a taste of the perspectives of the even so-called right-wing Hindu fascist people of those days. Fazlul Haq, after completing his LLB, started his career as an article clerk under the legendary Bengali educator and jurist Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, also known as Banglar Bagh or the Tiger of Bengal, who was the founder of the famous Ashutosh College in Kolkata. Now, Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, father of the late Dr. Shama Prasad Mukherjee, treated Mr. Haq as his own son, and Mr. Haq was the first Muslim law graduate taken in as Sir Ashutosh's junior. And then, out of all people, Dr. Shama Prasad Mukherjee, the founder of the Bharatiya Jansangh, the predecessor to the current day BJP, he went on to support Fazlul Haq in his re-election as the Prime Minister of Bengal, where Shama Prasad Mukherjee himself served as the Finance Minister under Fazlul Haq. So you see, friendships, ideologies, all these things start out in one way, then take different courses based on priorities. You should remember it as a life lesson. Okay, then he is succeeded in this job by Sir Khwaja Nazimuddin. And guess who he is? He went on to become the second Governor General of Pakistan after Jinnah. He became the second Defense Minister of Pakistan after Liaquat Ali Khan. And he became the second Prime Minister of Pakistan when Liaquat Ali Khan got assassinated. So this is a fun list, right? And then who succeeds Khwaja Nazimuddin as the Chief Minister of Bengal? The Butcher of Bengal, H.S. Surawardi, the man who orchestrated the Direct Action Day killings in Calcutta. He engineered the killings, maiming, rape and molestation of tens of thousands of Hindus in Calcutta, prevented the police from going to the aid of Hindus, and then triggered the Noakhali riots in October-November of that year, which left an estimated 5,000 Hindus dead, while 10,000 were raped and forcibly converted to Islam, along with a few thousand Hindu families. So you see, until Profullo Ghosh became the first chief minister of this province called West Bengal in 1948, and basically the first Hindu ruler of this region in approximately 724 years, Bengal hadn't seen any Hindu rule. And who are the last three rulers? Last three Muslim rulers? One was the author of the Lahore Resolution which wanted Pakistan, one was the second Prime Minister of Pakistan, and one wanted entire West Bengal to go to Pakistan. Now remember, by the time Profullo Ghosh becomes the chief minister, entire West Bengal is either communist in mindset or is Congressy in mindset, which is basically socialism. So in a way, again, epistemologically speaking, a sort of anti-Hindu ruling class comes to power. And after the Congress goes out of business in 1977, the communists in Bengal come to power, and then Mamata Banerjee comes to rule in 2011, who according to Dr. Subramaniam Swamy is an ardent Durga Bhakt. So you see, Mamata Banerjee may be the first non-Hindu hating ruler of Bengal in about 800 years, and even then, look what she's doing. Now, why did I give this lengthy list of Bengal rulers? Because in my opinion, whoever becomes the ruler, their lifestyle, their outlook towards life, society, faith, language, entire Jivan Darshan ends up becoming yours. Why? Either through force or even without force. Because people come to respect the ruling class and look at them with awe. And therefore remember, the behavior of the ruling class will always become the aspirational model for the common citizens. And since the ruling classes in question here are entirely Abrahamic in nature, suffice to say that much of the respect for Abrahamism came from coercion, manipulation, and fear. But there are other examples as well. Remember that one of the core findings of the school of thought called decoloniality is that colonial powers always go after the elite class of any society, give them little breadcrumbs of recognition in order to make them part of their culture, which in turn leads the entire rest of the society looking up to whatever their elites are doing as the thing to aspire for. Which is why the Nehru family is effectively the bastion for the propagation of an European colonialized mindset, and which is also why any random kid with zero knowledge or academic interest in linguistics, music or poetry is first and foremost in awe of Urdu poetry. Because Bollywood is the elite class here, and they have made Urdu Shairi the thing to aspire towards. So there's no judgment or discussion by anyone about whether Urdu poetry is actually better than the poetry in any of the hundreds of Bharatiya languages or even Sanskrit in terms of imagery or allegory or overall content. But instead, somehow, people seem to want to be skilled at quoting Urdu verses in random conversations, tea parties, debates, and Facebook bios. So as some of you know, any Bengali with the surname Shen is most probably a descendant of the Sena dynasty which came from Karnataka, and if not, then they might be descendants of the Vakataka dynasty which also ruled the lands nearby Karnataka. And although the name Karnataka is said to be derived from the term Karunadu, which suggests an elevated land, I think two dynasties from a nearby locality with similar names deserves more research, because you see, Vakataka, Karnataka. And then both the Vakataka dynasty and the Sena dynasties both had the surnames Sena, or as you would pronounce in Bengali, Shen, in their kings. By the way, remember which king ordered the creation of the Ajanta caves? Raja Horishen of the Vakataka dynasty. And here's a stronger Bengal-Karnataka connection coincidence. The first king of the Vakataka dynasty, who was the only Vakataka king without the overt use of the surname Sena, his name was Vindhya Shakti. His name is apparently derived from the goddess Vindhyavashini. And why? Maybe because he was a devotee of Devi Vindhyavashini? And who is goddess Vindhyavashini? According to economist and Sanskritist Bibek Debroy, it was the Bengali Sanskrit scholar Raghunandan Bhattacharya who appropriated and basically presented the idea of worshipping Devi Vindhyavashini as goddess Durga in Bengal, who is the prime Hindu deity of Bengal, even though leftist Bengalis have been trying to un-Hinduize her worship for about 40 years now. So we have a Vakataka Shen king who was a Vindhyavashini Bhakt, and then we have Raja Ballal Shen, the fourth king of the Sena dynasty, who made the Dhakeshwari temple in Dhaka, which is the biggest Hindu temple in Bangladesh and is a temple dedicated to also goddess Durga. It is said that the gem of Sati's crown fell in this location, which is why it is a Shakti Peeth, and it is also the place where Raja Bijoy Shen's queen gave birth to Raja Ballal Shen, which is why he wanted a temple here. Now, this dynasty, like all other dynasties, also started declining, and that mainly happened during the rule of Lakshmana Sena or Lakhon Sen, who was the last significant Sena king. Sena kings continued to rule in eastern Bengal for some decades, but the main political power in Bengal had passed to the Muslim Ghurid Empire. But still, the last Hindu ruler of Bengal until Prafullo Ghosh in 1948 was basically Raja Keshava Sena or Keshav Sen, who belonged to a family that came from Karnataka and settled here, embraced our culture and perhaps brought some of their own cultures with them, but did not force us to learn their languages or faith system. You can't even argue that the Senas or Vakatakas forced us to worship goddess Durga, because not only has Shaktism and goddess worship existed since about 400 CE at the very least, there is also the famous Baitala Deula temple in Odisha, which is right next to Bengal, which was built about 200 years before the Sena dynasty arrived in Bengal. And this temple was built by Queen Tribhuvana Mahadevi I of the Bhaumkara dynasty sometime around 846 CE. And the presiding deity in this temple is Devi Chamunda, the terrifying 8-handed goddess, also locally known as Kapalini, who sits on a dead body of a demon surrounded by a jackal and an owl, and is decorated with a garland of skulls. The weapons she holds are a snake, a bow, a shield, a sword, a trishul, a thunderbolt, and an arrow, and is piercing the neck of the demon. Doesn't this image feel familiar? And now, in the context with Bengal's nature of servitude in face of religious fascism, we need to discuss a man called Raja Ganesh. He hailed from a family who were landholders for centuries, and Raja Ganesh himself was a landlord or basically a zamindar of the Bhaturiya region of modern-day Bardhaman in West Bengal. He then became an officer of the Ilyas Shahi dynasty hailing from Iran, who were rulers in the Pandua region of Malda, of modern-day Malda in West Bengal, where the famous Adina Mosque is situated. Now, some accounts say Raja Ganesh murdered Sultan Ghiyasuddin Azam Shah, and some say he didn't. But it is interesting to note that his wife Phuljani was the widow of Sultan Ghiyasuddin Azam Shah. Now, I have no information on Phuljani herself, nor do I know whether she was a Hindu Bengali forcibly taken as wife or born into this Iranian dynasty, but basically we cannot conclude anything regarding the motivations of Raja Ganesh for this action. Then something insane happens. Nur Qutub Alam comes into the picture. He was an Islamic scholar and is noted for his efforts in preserving the Muslim rule in Bengal, and he was also the pioneer of the Dobhashi tradition of Bengali literature, which was basically the first concerted effort of desanskritizing the Bengali language, because this Dobhashi tradition is what started the use of Arabic words in Bengali. Words like pani instead of jol, rongdhanu instead of ramdhanu, meaning a rainbow, and also words like rahmate, jayas, etc. Arabic and Persian words which are today used by Bangladeshi Bengalis in their Bangla and seem to be totally accepted by leftist flag bearers of Bangla Bhasha here in West Bengal. But anyway, Raja Ganesh then faces an imminent threat of invasion at the behest of this holy man Nur Qutub Alam, so he appeals to the saint to call off the threat. The saint, on the other hand, agrees to call off this threat, but on the condition that Raja Ganesh's son Jodu would have to convert to Islam and rule in his place. Now guess what? Raja Ganesh agrees, and thus his son Jodu becomes Jalal al-Din and gets to the throne in 1415 CE. But then Nur Qutub Alam dies the very next year in 1416, and Raja Ganesh kicks out his son from the throne and does Ghar Wapsi of his son by the Hiranya Garbha tradition. Now here's the biggest twist in this story. After Raja Ganesh's death, our boy Jodu reconverts to Islam and becomes Jalaluddin Muhammad Shah and starts his rule again in 1418 and rules for 17 years. Can you believe it? Then Jalaluddin went on to play a significant role in converting Hindus of Bengal to Islam. Dr. James Wise wrote in the Journal of the Asiatic Society of Bengal in 1894 that, quote, "The only condition he offered was either the Quran or death. Many Hindus fled to Kamrup and the jungles of Assam, but it is nevertheless possible that more Muslims were added to Islam during these 17 years than in the next 300 years." End quote. And just on a side note, Jalaluddin married Asman Tara. What a beautiful name. And guess who was Asman Tara? She was the daughter of Ghiyasuddin Azam Shah, who was the first husband of his mother, so I'm guessing he married his stepsister maybe. But this dynasty did not go on. You can call it a curse or coincidence, but Jalaluddin died when his son was just 14 years old. So his son Shamsuddin Ahmad Shah becomes king at age 14 and rules in a kingdom completely engulfed in chaos and anarchy, and also an invasion by Ibrahim Shah Sharki from the Jaunpur dynasty, but basically of Persian descent. So this rule for the 14-year-old kid is just for about 3 years, until he is killed by his own attendants Shadi Khan and Nasir Khan in a power struggle. And so he dies without leaving behind any heir to the throne, and he is succeeded by Nasir ad-Din Ghulam. And thus began the gradual descent of Bengal into servitude.